Hello? Pretty heavy weekend, I guess. I revived an old keyboard, and it was an old Signum 3.1. I kind of hacked at it a little bit too much, and it stopped working. And I had to revisit it and relearn everything. But once it was back up and running, it was pretty good. It was in good shape. It had a it runs blues, MX Blues, and they are loud. Like even on a circuit board only design, loud. Part of the thing I had to do was give it some standoff feet, so that might be contributing somewhat to the noise. I could probably put a mat on it and see if it gets a little bit quieter. But I was trying to do some streaming and figure out some appropriate settings for OBS, because I can stream no problem, but my computer caches all of the, like, it gets behind, and it gets so far behind that chatting is basically useless. But it will stream and it will encode all of that data at full resolution. It'll just murder the CPU while doing so. So the problem has been, first of all, the chat, obviously, because I can't chat with anyone anymore if the stream is 20 minutes behind. And the next is the CPU usage gets so high that I basically can't work at all. So, and that's kind of the point of the streams, I'm sorry to say. I really like talking to you all, but if I can't do any work, then it's just frustration. And I have kind of a low tolerance for frustration too, because I'm addicted to that VIM speed. So if anything lags more than really half a second, it's probably closer to 300 milliseconds. If it's obviously lagging repeatedly at around 300 milliseconds, I can tell, and it's super annoying. It's also super bright. So I adjusted the resolution and tried a few other things and lowered the bit rate, which is just fine, because previously I had some hardware acceleration, and I don't have that on this new laptop, even though I have, 4-core i7, but whatever, I guess. So I'm tweaking the settings, and I think I've got a good set of settings for streaming customer information. So it's low resolution, but it's still fast, and it doesn't kill my computer, so I can actually do the work. And it's the bit rate is low enough that it doesn't it garbles the text pretty well, so there's no concern there. Because before I used a separate bit of software to obfuscate the text, or obscure the text, technically. It's not obfuscated. So yeah, that's pretty cool. I've got church stuff on my mind. We got some good and bad news. So that's I'm still trying to process that to a point of understanding. I did manage to see there was one day out of the year that you're actually, this is probably more than one, but there's one that I know of, that you are not allowed to hunt at the certain area, the wildlife management area that I go to. And I managed to go there on that day 2 years ago. And then after that happened, I was like, well, that was kind of dumb. So this year, I managed to do it, but with much more information at my disposal. I wasn't going for deer, so I didn't think to check when the draw days were, and that was the draw day. So I had intended on going hunting instead of going to a mayor summit. So I wound up coming back in all of my hunting gear just in time to catch the mayor summit. So I got a cool selfie of me in all camo with the mayor. I came away with a pretty positive view of Lexington, actually. I don't believe I'm technically politically on the same side as the current mayor, but all the topics she brought up, it was all good stuff, and it was very informative either way. So it was cool. I learned also about a number of ways to keep up on some of this information, and submitted a whole bunch of suggestions, because I'm down for, I want to build more community in the suburbs. Become so insular. So, had some ideas in that regard, and I got some good insight as to things we can do outside of the, or kind of within the city stuff. They have a whole bunch of different mechanisms for creating these kind of programs and associations and stuff like that. So it's kind of hard to find that information, and some of the information is basically kind of dead links. So I was able to talk to some of the people about that, and they had some good suggestions. So I hope to be building more community in my area. We're out of coffee, so the last scoop, I ran it at double water, so it's half strength now. But then I got my hot coffee with butter and my iced coffee, but it's still the same amount of coffee. So I'm not sure if I'm a genius or a fool. It's really not bad. The hot coffee was a lot harder. Cyclists, man. I don't know. Yeah, there's no chance you saw that. Man. I can't even flip the camera around while I'm recording. Alright. This is pretty useless here. I don't know. Just talking, I guess. How are you? The cyclists have fuzzy hats, knit hats with ears on them, like bear ears kind of, that fit over their helmets, and they have these, it looks like these cones. It's like cornucopia cones that come out over the hands. over the handlebars. So when you're riding, you don't just get the cold hitting your hands. Sure. I mean, kind of respect it. I added a video to my liked videos. It's called Doing with Images Makes Symbols. And it's Alan Kay talking about how we learn, I guess. There's a lot covered in there. And I watched it and had my mind blown only a few times. And then I went home and told my wife about it, because it talks about learning, and we're homeschooling. And I'm rather interested in that, and she's pretty intelligent, so I recommended she watch it. So we watched it, and I picked up a number of other things that I didn't pick up the first time. And I'm probably going to watch it 2 more times and pick up some more stuff. Well, I mean, listen to it, and it's mostly him talking. But it just, it's so, it's such a perfect example of what computing could have been. The enabling, empowering potential of creating an appropriate interface, an appropriate intuitive interface. At one point in there, he says that while they were working at Xerox Park, they started bringing kids in order to get kind of a more pure idea of what the user interface would be like and what things are truly intuitive. And some of them started learning to program in Smalltalk, and they said a 12-year-old girl made a 1 or 2 page long program that was a graphics program, so to allow you to create graphics and move things around on the page. And you know, his statement was she did this in about 2 weeks, and nowadays we go to the store and we buy a commercial copy of this software for $100. Hard to think about. It's hard to think that these companies, or rather the people who commercialized kind of all the software and the computing for, I guess a few $100,000, maybe for a few $1 million, stunted so much human development and creativity. But the good news is the damage has not been fully done. I mean, it can be undone. Maybe that's what the whole retro computing interest is for me. The idea that you sat down at a Commodore 64 or similar and said, I have full control over this computer. I have full control over the graphics. I have full control over the inputs and the outputs. Full control over the sounds. I know its capabilities. I have a manual that's 2 inches thick and covers everything, including the caveats and the yabbits. A little Paul Harrell nod there. And I have full control over this, and if I can imagine it in this space, then I can build it. And then a whole bunch of people showed up and said, well, that's too hard. If I build you this frame and you play within this frame, then that's okay. You can play here. But if you learn this frame, then you're not going to know anything about that frame over there. Also, the frame costs $100. It is... I probably am still in the process of understanding doing with images make symbols, because it tells me that the abstraction is a negative thing. That the abstraction is a logical construct that may not necessarily have anything to do really with reality. And that by doing and interacting, you have a much more reality-based understanding, a much more truth-based understanding, than if you simply are told what things are. You're just told what the logic is and told what the symbols are. You have this partial understanding, I guess. It's really hard to wrap my head around because my head's full of symbols. And I can't even explain... yeah. Someone can't explain a concept to me if I have a incorrect view of that concept, or if my abstract understanding is just wrong. It's a very interesting video. Highly recommend, etc.